Hello everyone, it is October 5th, 2011, and this is what is popular on DeviantArt tonight. So let's jump right in. We have the infamous Professor by Lone Momo. This looks like a traditional sketch of an anime character or something. I don't know if it's an original character. I don't recognize it from anything, so I'm guessing it's something original. The infamous Professor. He seems very professory with his giant needle and his monocle. There's a couple strange choices that are jumping out at me. Um, First of all, I guess having him close his eye. Maybe there's some kind of special character thing, and he's has a magical eye or something. But it feels a bit awkward. And also, there seems to be a fountain pen stabbing him through the temple. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to be. Maybe it's in his hair? I don't know. Just from the direction and everything, it certainly seems like a fountain pen is just kind of stabbing him in the head. But aside from that, let's see. There's some good stuff going on in the hand. Like I like there's these knuckles and things, and it seems like he's trying to do more anatomy stuff, or she. But yeah, the hair is kind of a bit blah. You can see how it's just kind of flat and comes out all around, and it doesn't really have a proper shape or kind of, I don't know, style to it, I would say. But yeah, so like there's some nice touches, like there's some good rendering stuff going on, but when you combine that with these like anime shapes and these like certain things like this where you have like a rendered shadow shading, rendered shading, and then you have these very simple eyebrows which are very anime. It's just kind of slightly off, slightly weird with the long neck and everything like that. Kind of got the giraffe syndrome going on. And this shoulder's gonna, I don't know where it's coming out, but there's some nice things like this whole kind of bit deresing, um, this deresed kind of effect on on the design in general. Hold on, let me scroll down. See where it's like falling apart into pixels or whatever. That's just kind of a stylistic thing, and it's kind of interesting. Leaving some stuff kind of less rendered and whatnot. Overall, I feel like the local values of everything is very flat. You can see like there's not much darkness and shadows, and this stuff isn't really much different than skin tones, and this is like only very slightly darker than the rest of the stuff, and everything just kind of feels like it's all in the same value range in terms of its local value. But yeah, overall, I'm just gonna hop right on to the next piece. And this one is called Dimitri by some person, and I will tell you all about it as soon as it loads. From the thumbnail, it looked like some kind of Pokemon or something, but just kind of some kind of creature design. And this is by Purple Kekleon. Purple Kekleon, let's say that. Right away, I like this person's rendering. Like, it's very kind of traditional looking, very kind of painterly, chalky. It just has a lot of depth to the actual coloring and stuff, and there's some hue variation you can see, like there's some yellow here, like bounced light type stuff, and some purples and blues up here, so I like their rendering approach. It works good. It shows that this thing's kind of fuzzy just by the way they rendered it. There's a lot of minimalism going on with that stuff, so overall, that's those are some nice rendering touches. Onto this onto the design. There's a couple poor choices. One thing would be these claws, I guess. Yeah, these two claws here on both hands. First of all, the color with them is kind of, I don't know. It's not really serving any strong purpose when you mix these reds with like a purple. It's kind of off-putting to the person viewing it. But the other thing is that these things seem to be having this weird kind of lighting shadow effect on here, which seems a bit off, like there would be a groove in here. It's very flat. It doesn't really come off as rounded and top lit like it should. So this feel a little off. You don't need this dark line right in here. You could do something a little more subtle with that, and it would probably look a little better. But it's okay overall. This M feels a bit flat on the belly, I guess. it feels a bit like it's taking away from the form. You can see the form feels like it should have some roundedness, different shapes like come down, roundedness, but this M feels pretty flat for the most part. It feels like it's a bit different in the shadow part for no real reason, but it doesn't feel like it's defining the form as much as it could, and, you know, questionable. But overall, there's some nice choices here. And the presentation doesn't really have anything going for it. It's just on a gray background, which is okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with poor presentation. The only reason anyone cares about presentation, and the only reason artists care about presentation, is that we use it like as a trick to impress maybe clients or people you're working for. You want them to like a design. Usually they can be fooled by the presentation. You give them a good design, and people that aren't artists may not be adept to knowing what a good design looks like or what a good design is, so you kind of sell it to them with fancy presentation and stuff like that. That isn't really important to the that isn't important to the design at all, but it's just something we do to sell stuff to random people that don't know art stuff, but make the decisions anyway when it comes to art stuff. So next we got Romantically Apocalyptic 54. I guess this is a long-running comic or something by Alexius. So we have this thing going on here which seems like it's an outdated meme that I used to see a lot. And by the way, I hated all of them. They're all terrible, and memes are really boring for the most part. Um, and no, I'm not just trying to be mean. I just don't like memes in general on anywhere on the internet. It's kind of like an easy cop-out way of trying to feel like you're funny without having to be creative. Sometimes they can be done and be kind of like, oh, they can get a slight chuckle or smile, but, memes. So it looks like this guy's going, grab my boob. Grab Vitcher. Yep, that's like the meme. And then nothing happened. It was just in their imagination or whatever. And, it's okay. The rendering on this is a bit dark. Obviously it's supposed to be dark, but it feels like he's blending into the background a bit. There's not quite enough atmosphere as you would want for a comic like this. If you blur your eyes a bit, it all kind of blends together, and you see things like this. The break between these towers happens to line up perfectly with this white coat he has on, which is just kind of unfortunate, and it makes him blend into the background so much more. And I think I mentioned the thing about tangents before and why they were bad, and I wasn't quite sure. And then someone posted in the thread, not in the thread, someone posted a comment that they make things appear more flat. And I could definitely see that happening here, because you can see this guy just blends right in with the building. Right in with the building. Pretty much almost on both sides. The shoulders just happen to line up with that building. It makes it look really flat. So other than that, meme stuff like that. Let me just go back. Best friends. Oh, it's Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. It looks like a clay figure. I don't know if they made the figure. Maybe they didn't. It's not under artisan crafts or whatever it would be. It's on photography, but it's, a nice a nice photograph showing off these two figures at least. Captures the right mood with the vignetting and the kind of textured backdrop. It feels like proper for the characters. So, nothing too crazy to say about that. It's interesting if you guys want to gather around for story time. I was at Disneyland the other day, and they have all their for Halloween stuff up, and they actually had a guy who was playing Jack Skellington, and it was possibly the creepiest thing I've ever seen. This design, it could have been okay if he had just like a giant head, spherical head, like Jack in the Box type thing going on. But instead they opted to go with a more moving and talking version. So they had a giant dome-shaped head. No, not a dome-shaped, but like a giant, like huge at the top, small at the bottom. Basically, it looked like a stereotypical alien that you would see like someone drawing, or you would see on like the X-Files. And they had the bottom part like his jaw, and he was talking. So he could talk to people, and it was very awkward and scary. And he also had this weird cartoony voice which had absolutely nothing to do with the actual movie. It was kind of like, "Hey guys, Jack Skellington." And it was, I don't know what they were going for, but it was strange and amazing all at once. So that's it for story time. Traded Touched by Blood. Okay, this was an art trade. Touched by Blood. So we have a sketch which was colored by one guy. I'm not sure who did which. And it doesn't make it abundantly clear. This is by FRZ Dragon. Maybe that's like Freeze Dragon. But, a lot of dark black colors with the red. Obviously high contrast. And the sketch is very simple anime stuff, with that one hand being hidden, because they're kind of lazy with the pose, and the other arm is coming out here and holding this, I don't know what it is. It could be like a long cigarette, it could be like a magical wand, but they're holding it between their knuckles, which is kind of weird. So, yeah, there's some, bandages and blood and random handcuff thing. So design-wise, there's nothing that interesting. But, it's something. I like the way they did the smoke. It has some personality to it. Instead of just being boring and lacking it. At least it fits in this style of this kind of anime style where you have like line art and then there's a gradient in it, so the smoke was nicely done. And there's some blood splatter, which is, black and red background usually makes everything look a bit flat. But this could work for a comic book, I guess. Just as like a piece of art, it's, black and red. Nothing too exciting. So we have a random lightning bolt under the eye, which is just, generic character features to throw in for no real purpose. Much like much like a lot of the stuff you see, but that's okay. It's okay overall. It is what it is. You can see in the thumbnail. It's something very. Oops. Steve Jobs. Google. I went backward one too many times. Anyway, so the next piece is called Midget Sex. No, wait, hold on. The next piece is called Mug Said 6, and by Opophis, I'm guessing. Yep, Opophis, who I've seen on here before. And this looks like a few of his old pieces of art that have been repurposed for, I guess to be on mugs. Yeah, that would make sense. So they're for mugs, and you can get them, and he's kind of selling them, and, always got to be trying to make money. That's nothing wrong with that. I respect that. Anytime you can think you can make some money from your art without having to work for someone else, that's always a good thing. So we got like White Kitten with the panda and the panda with the frog cat thing, and I think I like this one the most because it has the most color and lighting effects. See, there's like the jack-o'-lantern. It's timely. It feels more appropriate for the date. But overall, he's kind of sticking to this theme with the really dark, floaty backgrounds with the little speculars and spots and semi-bokeh type stuff. And always with the interesting kind of watery effects. But that's a good reflection too. I respect that. But otherwise, kind of very, very much comfort zone stuff for Apophis. And I'm sure he knows that. This is very much his comfort zone of drawing kind of fuzzy creatures and stuff like that. So hopefully he or she can push himself a bit more into trying more random crazy stuff. But yeah, this is just them selling mugs, so using old art and stuff like that. Luckily, they're not selling midget sex. So, let's jump right back. And those feel like appropriate designs to be sipping hot cocoa from. Here we go. Our old friend, what is his name? Hold on. It will load, I promise. Tom Preston. So I've seen him before on here. Maybe a couple of times, actually. But anyway, let's see. Oh, I've actually been following this little comic he's been doing because it's kind of interesting and I'm not sure where he's going with it at all. And I see them on the front page at all, so naturally I follow them and I'm actually mildly curious. I'm curious as to what's going to happen. And sadly, Mr. Carr, what? And he's scared, and I wanted to know why I got the bad grade, and yes. So nothing actually happens in this comic, but it's like building, and you can see like all the people in the comments, they're like, what is this building to? Is this kid gonna get a stern, like, comeuppance? Is that what's gonna happen? I don't really know, because it seemed like he's kind of portraying this guy as some, horrible stick in the mud who, doesn't respect, artistic decisions and stuff like that. But on the other hand, he portrays this kid as like some snobby kid who thinks his art is great, even though he draws basically the same way the creator of the comic draws. So there's like this weird vibe going on that I don't actually know where he's going. It feels like he might be making fun of himself, which is, respectable. I can respect that. And maybe he is. But, I honestly don't know. I don't know what he's trying to say, but it's kind of interesting. So that's probably the most interesting thing I've seen from him, just because it's like very self-referential, and um, definitely has a couple different angles to go from. But it's funny because the comments all want this kid to really get it. They want him to like just like get destroyed by this old man who apparently used to be more like the villain. So it's kind of weird. It's like a weird vibe going on here. Oh, oh God, thank you. I don't know why I clicked that so fast. I saw this. It's called Unlovable by Gutterface, and the only thing that was going through my head was, I hope there's not a spider. I hope there's not a spider. And I clicked it, and luckily there is not a spider, because I don't like seeing spiders, especially not in macro photography. Ugh, creepy spiders. But instead it is a spider web, which are always interesting, and the framing on this is a bit weird, where it feels like it's kind of blocked in this one chain link of fence perfectly. But, I don't know if I agree with the cropping, but, the picture itself is kind of interesting, just because it's a very detailed look at a spider web. And actually, wow, the download image goes huge. Huge, huge, like ridiculously huge, and I like it because you can see all these great details. I don't think I could scroll through. Oh, wait, yeah, I can. See how these webs just pick up every little drop of dew, and so I can respect that. That's definitely nice to look at. And once again, thank you for not having an actual spider in there, because I would have been terrified. So, anyway, once again, I think that's all I will do for now. You can see there's some other stuff, some animes, some cosplay stuff, typical stuff, some meme type stuff like that. This feels completely derivative of what we saw like a week ago with the key in front of the bouquet, and I think this is from a different person, so whatever, just ride those coattails all you want. This, I can already tell from the thumbnail, the skin tones lack any sense of color variation and saturation. It looks like they just get duller. So that person needs to work on that. But I think that's about it. So I will be doing some other stuff. I think I have a subject for my next design lab. So in the meantime, I'll be reading all these random comments in these random pieces, because that's what I like to do. I like to go on DeviantArt, and I like to find any piece of art that seems like it might have some controversial aspect to it, and I like to read the comments. It makes me happy. The comments are kind of like this masterful modern art performance piece that you guys, well, not you guys maybe, but that the people on DeviantArt all take part in. And it's like this weird social experiment of psychology, and like self-satisfaction is just dripping from every comment as they jockey for positioning above each other, and then make these comments that they think will just cut deep to the core of everything that might be controversial. And sadly, we don't have any stamps up here, because those are the best. I love it when I see a stamp up here, and they have absolutely no artistic value, and they say something really lame like, do art because you love it. And, just something really kind of nonsensical that makes, obvious sense, but is very kind of pointless. And but it's just dripping with self-satisfaction, and I love that. I eat that up. I love your self-satisfaction. And speaking of which is why you can see what else I've been doing. I've been reading message boards because it's been about 5 or 6 hours since Steve Jobs died, which is just enough time for the people of the internet to gather around and start arguing over the merits of Apple and all this stuff, and it's basically turned into this huge thing about people arguing about how terrible Apple is or how great Apple is, and like how Steve Jobs is the master of materialism and he ruined America, and all these people talking about cultists and stuff like that, and it's like this wonderfully horrible modern art performance once again. That is more embarrassing than you people will ever understand. But that's okay. It's fun. And yeah, stuff like that. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll be back with Design Lab in a few days probably.